Hello, my name is Elijah Davis, and today we're going to take a quick look at writing a connector SDK solution with AI assistance, and specifically we're going to use Claude Code. So we're going to start in the Fivetran documentation where we have the connector SDK and our connector SDK examples. And we'll see here we have a tip on using AI to write the code for a connector SDK. Following this link, we go to the public repo for the AI README, full of multiple examples. And in this, we have a link to the system instructions. So this system instruction, think of it as an overarching rule set that we're going to use for Claude to ideally create us functional connector SDK code in a few iterations. Now, this system instruction has a core identity and purpose, response framework, technical requirements, etc., best practices, all that. And so we took this information and we went to our project folder, which is called FDA Tobacco Claude, and we added it as ClaudeMD. You'll also notice we have a fields.yaml and a notes.txt in this project directory, and those are pertinent to our data source. So when we jump back over, for our connector SDK solution, we're going to use an API made available by the FDA, and we're going to use it for tobacco problem reports. So we're going to use this information, and so that notes.txt file has information on authentication. It has an information on the overview and general info. We also included example API queries and response data as context. And then the fields.yaml in our project structure is literally just downloaded directly from the documentation. So all in all, with this, we've built out a lot of context that we can feed to Claude to help it build the connector SDK solution for us. So when we go over to our terminal, we initiated Claude inside of our FDA Tobacco Claude, so our change working directory. And so now we are in our project folder. And so now we're going to ask Claude to create us a solution, which will be the connector.py, the requirements.txt, and the configuration.json. So to do so, we're going to do contextually driven prompts. So we're going to break this into three sections. The top section is just information about our data source, which is the API endpoint for the tobacco problems. We're also specifying that it needs to incrementally upsert this data and track state through the checkpoints. Now, the second section is we're going to get a little more specific with what we want Claude to do once it's connected to that data source for this development cycle. So we're going to limit the initial testing to 10 responses because we don't want to burn our API calls unnecessarily. We're developing a new connector. We want to make sure that this connection works and that the data returns and gets formatted successfully. In doing so, we want it to exit gracefully, leave us clear comments, use strategic log messages, and we also want it to define only the primary key and let Fivetran infer the rest. Section 3 is where we add all of the context to Claude. So we're going to ask it to follow the best practices outlined in the MD file, which we added here. We're also going to have pertinent notes about the endpoint are in notes.txt, which is right here. And again, this is all information from the public documentation. And then we have our fields.yaml, which is from the documentation and downloaded directly. And then we have a request for template code, which is also in our ClaudeMD, so all of that context. And then we are asking it to build that solution in our project folder. So with this contextually driven prompt, we're going to submit it to Claude Code and ask it to create us the connector.py solution, configuration.json, and requirements.txt. And there we go. It's got its to-dos. It's going to create the connector.py, then the requirements, and then the config. And once it creates these, we're going to ask it to debug it as well, without leaving the chat. And lastly, if that's all successful, we're going to deploy to Fivetran all within the chat. And there we go. So here's our connector.py. Going through this, we're going to say everything looks good. Now it's going on to the requirements.txt. And yes, we wanted to create that. And the configuration.json, which, yes, we wanted to create that as well. Okay, the connector has now been completed. If we jump back over to our file explorer, we can see those files are now done. So that's awesome. Let's have it debug it. So I'm going to say, great. Can you test the connector using Fivetran debug? All right, now we're asking it to debug its work, test that connector. And now it's running the Fivetran debug. So yes, and it identified an issue that it's going to resolve. And there we go. And now we're going to ask it to retest. Okay, it is now testing again. Perfect, we got our 10 upserts, 1 checkpoint, 1 schema change event. All things are looking good. It says it looks good if we take a look at the data now. So we're gonna say, great. Can you show the data from warehouse.db using .db syntax? And we can come here and we can see in our files folder, we have our warehouse.db. And now that's what we're going to ask it to review. Perfect. It's now done the data review, and we can come back up here and we can expand. And here's the data that we replicated. Again, not writing a single line of code that we asked Claude to do. And now we're going to go back. So it says it's ready. Sweet. Let's deploy it to Fivetran. So we're going to say, great. Deploy this to Fivetran using the Fivetran deploy command. And we do not want, we don't need the help option, so we're going to say no. Just run Fivetran deploy. So now we're going to say deploy to Fivetran. Yep. Ooh, did not like it. Which is okay. It's because the command is expecting additional information. So here we go. We can now grab this command and we are simply going to name the destination. And so I'm going to go over to Fivetran really quick and show you how I got this name. But it is CSG auto test. And so now if I jump over to Fivetran, I can see in my dashboard I have CSG auto test. So this is the destination I want to deploy the connector to so that I get a schema in Snowflake that I can review for this FDA data. So everything's looking good. I got my API key set as an environment variable before this demonstration. The connection, I wanted to call it FDA tobacco video. And the config, I'm going to use the configuration.json that it generated. Now we're submitting that command. And yes, we want it to deploy. Perfect. The connection has now been successful, and we can visit the Fivetran UI by following this link. So if we jump back over here, we're just going to replace that. And we now have our FDA tobacco video connector that we did not write. We had Claude write in entirety. So now we're going to start that initial sync, and our schema and table objects are going to be created in Snowflake end to end, all by using Claude Code and AI system instructions made available by the Fivetran public Git repo here. All right, there you have it. So now that we have deployed the connector to Fivetran, we have successfully gone from a directory that had 2 files, just a notes.txt and a fields.yaml. We then added context with a Claude MD, which was the agents.md information from the AI and connector SDK public repo under agentsmd. So there's our one-to-one there. After we did that, we built a contextually driven prompt to ask Claude to create the entire connector SDK solution, which it did successfully here and built out the configuration.json, connector.py, and requirements.txt necessary to replicate data. At which point, we used Claude to debug and review the data that was replicated here. And then we also deployed the connector using Claude, all without leaving the single chat. So I hope you found this session insightful. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. I'm on the services team and here to help.